Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are reviewing the Stryker 2.0 pump action blaster from Dart Zone. This was just released this year. Had it in my hands for a little while now. I've been able to take it to a war and have some fun with it here at the house as well. And yeah, so in this review, we're going to talk about the functionality of the blaster, go over what's included inside the box, and kind of how it functions. We'll also be taking it out of the range and getting some target shooting with it, showing you guys some of those results. And then we'll also be going through the FPS readings on the chronograph. And then I'll come back and give you my final thoughts on how it works and some of the things that I like about it and don't like about it, and what I would like to see for the Stryker 3.0 or maybe Stryker 2.5. Yeah, so let's go ahead and just kind of jump right in with the functionality of the blaster. First off, this is a pump action blaster. It's a Springer blaster, so no batteries required. To prime it, you pull the front priming handle back. That will pull the plunger rod back, and then when you push it forward, that will load in your first dart. And then all you do from there is pull the trigger that's located here. That will release the catch and shoot all that air that's stored up in the plunger tube behind the dart and send your dart going that way. So as far as the features of the blaster goes, up front, we have kind of like their normal, Dart Zone's normal kind of attachment point, where you can add a couple different variations of what muzzle attachments, both cosmetic and some performance improvement. With this blaster, it does come with two different ones. The smaller of the two, which is the one you're probably going to want to use, is what's known as kind of like a printed or a scar barrel. This doesn't have any strings in it like a SCAR would, but it does have rifling inside, so you do get several lines of printed or injection molded rifling in there. And this just friction fits inside the blaster, so you just push this into the barrel and it friction fits inside this opening right here. This will impart spin on your dart, which will give you presumably better accuracy. We'll figure that out when we go out on the actual range and take a look. This, on the other hand, is strictly for looks. This muzzle device doesn't have any rifling whatsoever inside of it, and it fits the exact same way. It just friction fits in there just like that, and then you've got this extra long barrel that, for some people, that's what they're looking for. I will note that it does make an interesting sound when you're firing, give you a little bit more of like an echo type of thing. At least inside it did. Outdoors, not so much, but nevertheless, you got those two attachments. The other thing that was included in the box is this attachment piece here that just goes onto the side of the rail on either side, and you can fit your P-car on the side there. So if you just for storage purposes, that way you don't forget it when you go to your Nerf war or whatever, you can keep that on there, and then you can also keep this one installed. You can't install both of them, which that's kind of unfortunate for those of you that really enjoy this. I know my son really likes kind of the larger muzzles for looks. It would have been nice if Dart Zone allowed you to use both of these by attaching the two together. Yeah, that's not a thing. So also included in the box is two front top rail sights. So you've got your front iron sight and your back iron sight. There is no glass inside here, which is great because that means moisture will not get stuck in there. It does have a decent sized picture profile in there, so you're not a lot of plastic as far as like the iron sights go. So you're not gonna have an obstructed view, which is nice. Full Picatinny style top rail, which is great. That way, if you want to remove these and add your own optic, which I highly recommend with the blaster or something like this, that would be, that's easy enough to do. The included iron sights aren't too bad. They're a little low, so you really have to kind of tuck down and get really low to actually use them. So putting these up on a little bit of a riser would be nice. So we got your iron sights. Moving on back, you've got your magwell. Now this is an interesting take on this blaster. So it takes Talon style magazines. Now this comes with one kind of banana rounded magazine included in the box, and it just loads up like that. You've got your mag release right here, which will release it. It does gravity drop, which is great. So you've got that. So now the other thing that's really cool about this is when you prime this back, you can take out this mag adapter and you can load up your drum magazine. Now this is really cool. When you get this in the box, I struggled with it at the very beginning in the unboxing, but these two little tabs here, the orange tabs pull out. You'll have to make sure that you pull both of them all the way out until they click, and then they stay out unless you force them back in. But the way this loads is while you have the priming handle all the way back, you have both of those popped out, you just slide this right in here, and it's gonna load into these two little slots, just like this. It'll only fit one way, it won't fit this way. So you can't have it backwards, you want the darts facing forward. And you just kind of slide it in like that, and then just like that. And you can give it a little tap, and just to make sure it's in there. So with it installed correctly, you can rotate it clockwise. You cannot rotate it counterclockwise. So that will kind of tell you if you've got it installed correctly. The darts you can load in from the rear, or you can load in from the front. Either way, it works. There is on the back of the drum, there are these little clear plastic catches. That's to help stop the dart from going all the way back. You can, however, push them past it, so just be cautious of that. You don't want anything protruding out this way. It's better to have them protruding a little bit further out here. You've got a little bit of space in the front, and when the bolt comes forward or the pusher comes forward, it will push the dart all the way into the kind of the breech area. So we've got a mag release here that releases both the magazine for when you've got your magazine mode, and it'll also release the drum if you're primed back. Now, if you're primed all the way forward, this will not do anything. You can't pull the actual magazine or the drum out unless the priming handle's all the way back. The reason is when you pull forward, the pusher arm goes through the cylinder of the drum, so that's why you can't pull it. You know, it's just physically impossible. It auto rotates when you prime it back, so obviously, like you just saw, you don't have to worry about rotating the drum to fire, which is great. Moving back, you have a safety. You've got S for safe, and then on the other side is an F for fire. Just below that, you have another mag release. This does the exact same thing as this, so same rules apply with the way that your priming handle is set up and what loading mechanism you're using. Moving back, you've got a trigger right here. It's kind of a real snappy trigger. We talked about the actual kind of pull in the unboxing, but it's pretty straightforward. You pull back, there's a little bit of give, and then you feel a clear wall, and then that's kind of where just after that the catch will engage. So there's a little bit of play there, not a lot, nothing to write home about, so don't be worried on that front. Moving back, we do have a nice size grip. I haven't taken this apart yet. We will be doing a what's inside or a look inside video like we did for the Nexus Pro X, and giving you a look at the internals, and we'll see what kind of handle is underneath here to see if you can use different AR style handles. But I suspect that it's very similar to the Nexus Pro X in the sense that you can remove that and add your own. But this is a nice handle compared to the original Stryker. I don't have nearly as much wobble as I did with the original one. One of my huge caveats to that blaster was the handle was garbage, and you couldn't replace it with something that was kind of standardized. Whereas with this one is much more solid, and you can't possibly replace it. We'll see. On the back, you do have an adjustable stock, which is nice. You got a few points of extension. Comes completely off. It is a buffer tube style stock, meaning that you can use kind of real steel or airsoft style butt stocks on there. The other thing that it does is offer you a quick access point just for a single screw release to get to the spring and the plunger, the spring rod. Again, I haven't taken this apart to do any type of spring swaps or anything like that. I know you can, just like with the Nexus Pro, you can put in spring spacers to improve your performance, presumably. I haven't done any of that today. We will go back in a future video and look at that. I will note that this spring in this blaster is not compatible with the Nexus Pro springs or the Aeon Pro springs. So it's a different diameter altogether. So those will not work. I do know that for a fact. But nevertheless, we will test other springs and see what we can find out. At the very least, a spring spacer is possible in there. So that, last ditch effort, that will be what we do. So yeah, so that is the actual blaster itself and all the functionality. As far as the other features go, I didn't mention there are 2 Picatinny style rails up here at the front. These do come off, and you can use the M-lock style inserts here to move them kind of around depending on where you'd like them to go. This also gives you an opportunity to put them put different attachments in there as well. So cameras, lights, lasers, all that good stuff can fit there. Other than that, that's pretty much all the features. Let's go ahead and talk about the darts next. So let's actually... All right, so that's all the features of the blaster. So let's go ahead and talk about the darts. So the darts that it comes with are these new nitro darts. These are kind of a ribbed or a bamboo dart similar to the bamboo 2.0s. These are the kind of the ones that I think everybody is aware of. They came out with a different version, a lighter version. I think they're called bamboo X darts or 2X darts. They're slightly lighter, I think, than these ones. But these should come up as a full 1 gram, between 1 and 9 grams. Unfortunately, I don't have something that goes back further, a decimal point, but it looks like these are all coming in between 1.1 and 0.9. So there's a little bit of variation there, which is unfortunate, but I think they're supposed to be 1.0 gram darts. These ones, on the other hand, are coming in at 0.8 and 0.9 grams. So you get a little bit of a heavier dart, which is great. You get an extra kind of bamboo rib on the inside, which is fantastic for air seal when it comes to the compression barrels that we're used to with the springers. With flywheelers, the bamboo doesn't really make much of a difference. So the mileage may vary with these. Again, you get 40 darts in this package, which is awesome. It's enough to fill up your magazine and the drum, which is great, depending on what way you want to play, or if you want to do both. So that's what comes in the box. You also get eye protection, which is fantastic. I really appreciate that. All right, guys, so that is all the functionality of the blaster and what's actually included in the box. Let's go ahead and head out on the range, get some performance as far as the precision goes, and then also get some FPS readings. We'll come back in here, review all that information, and I'll give you my final thoughts before we wrap it up. All right, guys, so we are out on the range. We are at 60 feet with the Dart Zone Stryker 2.0. We got a whack ton of ammo to go through, so let's go ahead and just plow right through it. We're going to start off with the brand new nitro shot darts. Again, 60 feet, aiming dead center. So next up we have the Dart Zone Bamboo. These are the 2.0 darts, not to be confused with the X darts or the original. These are the 2.0 darts at 60 feet, aiming dead center. Alright, next up we have the Adventure Force Ember Darts, 60 feet, aiming dead center. All right, next up we have the Dart Zone Ruby darts. So the target darts, we're at 60 feet, aiming dead center. Next up, Worker Gen 3 plus darts. These are the red darts, the red foam, 60 feet, aiming dead center. All right, and last up we have Worker Gen 3 plus darts. This is the purple foam, 60 feet, aiming dead center. All right, guys, so we are back in from the range, and holy cow, this blaster actually surprised me in a couple ways, and I'm really kind of digging. Actually, you know what? Let's save all that for after we go over the numbers. But after we go over the numbers, I'll talk about what I like and what I didn't like about the blaster and why it surprised me. So let's jump right into the numbers. Before we do that, though, I do want to mention that normally with my testing, I use brand new darts across the board with every blaster, every test, whether that's precision or FPS or range. For this blaster, since I only got 40 of the brand new nitro darts in the package, these are the only ones I have. I did have to reuse 20 of the darts, and that was for the stock results. So I went ahead and, because I knew I wanted to get the actual numbers of brand new darts with the PCAR, so I went ahead and shot those through first, got those results, and then collected those 20 darts that had shot through, removed the PCAR, and then shot those used darts through again. So the stock numbers that you're about to see are with used darts that were shot one time indoors and were collected immediately. So those numbers might vary. If they do, I will actually go through, and when I get new darts, I will run that test again without the PCAR on it, and I'll update the master list that's in the Google Documents shared in the description. That has all the numbers of all the blasters that I've ever reviewed or tested, along with upgrades and all that stuff. It's actually a pretty expansive document, but I'll update the stock version, quote unquote stock version, once I get those new darts in. So keep that in mind. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump in to the review of the first slide. So first up, again, you've got those stock numbers. Again, like I said, these numbers are with darts that have been shot one time. And the one thing that kind of stood out to me was just kind of the consistency. Now, I'll be the first to admit a standard deviation of between 12 and 15 really isn't what we're looking for with a performance level blaster. But if you think about it, this blaster is straight out of the box. So there's going to be an air seal problem because Dart Zone doesn't seat their barrels in snugly or airtight. So there's definitely going to be some type of air leak between the loading breech mechanism and the barrel. So that's something that you can easily fix and upgrade. Open up the blaster, wrap some E-tape or electrical tape around the actual barrel, and then slide it, wedge it back in nice and snug. If you want to go the extra mile, you can wrap tape around that to keep the barrel even tighter. I wouldn't recommend gluing your barrel in, because then you can't remove it for, you know, maintenance, or if you want to extend the barrel out with a mod kit from like Xbox Games or something like that. Gluing the barrel in is very final. So and there's no guarantee that you're going to get a full seal on there. So nevertheless, stock configuration isn't too bad, right? Between 12 and 15 is kind of what we expect, a good starting jumping off point. If it's lower, that's where, you're going to run into like the worker, Harrier, the Seagull, things like that, where they take a little bit more time with like the screw-in barrels that are threaded and a little bit tighter. So we can work with 12 to 15. I know in the past I've kind of dogged on blasters, but nowadays that's kind of like the standard deviation that I'm used to, and just knowing that it can be improved very easily once you open the blaster up. The other thing that I wanted to look at here was the consistency with the actual average FPS. So high 180s to mid 190s is perfect. Like for averaging, and it says on the box 200 feet, and that's a range claim and not an FPS claim. But you're giving us a good kind of range between 10 FPS here and going up to 190. High 190s is great, because if you've got a blaster that is right at that 200 range, then having something that goes way over it, depending on the darts, or way under it, depending on the darts, gives us a really good measurement of, okay, I've got this, I got to meet this requirement for this field or this game type or whatever, this club. So it's nice to see that this one is kind of spot on, right at that 190 to 200 range, and I appreciate that. It does stink because you can't lower the FPS at this point without modifying the back end of the blaster. So I know with like the Nexus Pro, Out of Darts had a cap that you can print out that extended the buffer tube down a little bit, and that reduced your FPS, which was nice. I haven't opened this up, so I don't know if there's something like that is possible. We'll have to wait and see. But as of right now, there's no way to lower it below that 189 FPS that you're getting with, or I'm sorry, the 186 that you're getting with the Worker Gen 3 HE Plus darts in red. But we did, like I said, we did test a whole bunch of different darts. All of them are brand new for the PCAR readings. All of them were brand new, save the Nitro darts in the stock ratings. And you do see a little bit of drop in FPS between the PCAR and the stock, and that's, in my opinion, is based on the barrel drag of the lines giving you that accuracy bump. And to me, it worked out really well, because that actually drops you down on average into some of those lower tier FPS categories. So, for example, with the Worker Gen 3 Reds, you get 169.6. So you're falling below that 170 range. Obviously not low enough to 150, 130, for HVZ. Again, you might have to look at changing out the spring or changing out the cap on the end to give you that kind of lower tier. You might be able to add a different muzzle on the front of this and give yourself a little bit more of a tighter seal, as far as more aggressive, like as far as like the B-car goes, where they've got the bearings inside. Sometimes those will even slow it down even further. So further testing is necessary for that on that front. But overall, I'm pretty impressed. With the P-car, we did see a bump in standard deviation, which that is surprising on quite a few levels. And the new Nitro darts really didn't, surpass anything. They're kind of just middle of the road, which for me is fine. Having more darts is never a bad thing, because that way you can fine tune what you're looking for your game type and your FPS cap. So I think overall, I really dig the Worker Gen 3 purples. I think those kind of gave the best showing overall. But you can see, the high FPS for Bamboo Pro darts. That was 226.8, and then the highest for the PCAR was 218. Again, Bamboo Pro darts, and that might be attributed to the lower weight of the dart itself. Nevertheless, you got some really good standard deviation readings here. So overall, I'm pretty impressed. And with some minor work on the inside of the blaster, those deviations obviously will drop down because you'll have a better air seal for more consistent shots from one to the next to the next. So let's go ahead and jump over to the range shots here and take a look at those results. First up, we've got our top one is our nitro darts, and I apologize, it's a little hard to see some of these, but the nitro darts are in like the darker green. So you can see that in all aspects here, whether it's the nitro darts, the bamboo 2.0s, or even the ember dart, they all fell slightly short as a cluster of the target. And again, this is aiming dead center of the target with the blaster as level as possible. You can see in the firing footage that I try to keep it as level as possible, but I want to stay as consistent as I can from shot to shot, from dart to dart. But overall, I think the nitro shots, finished very, very well. And as long as the standard deviation can be improved, you're just going to arc up just a little bit, or you might just have to stuff if you go up maybe, probably about 4 or 5 feet to 55 or 56 feet. Those shots are going to be ringing dead center every time. Moving on over to the next slide, you've got your ruby darts, your Worker Gen 3 reds, and your Worker Gen 3 purples, Gen 3 plus HE, whatever you want to call it. But these are the high-end darts and the ruby darts. Again, falling pretty short for the ruby darts and the reds. The purples, in my opinion, had a really good showing. They had the most shots on target. We don't look at accuracy for this specific test just because I don't zero in the sight. I try to keep it as level as possible, and I just want to see where the darts go. So you'll have to take it with a grain of salt. This is a good comparison between all the darts. So obviously you'd have to raise the zero up a little bit and maybe to the right for most of these. But again, between the Worker Gen 3s being a little low and the purple Gen 3s being a little to the left, like that's easily adjustable with the sight, or kind of fixing your sight line a little bit. But overall, I think the Worker Gen 3's purple ones really kind of showed their worth there. So moving over to my thoughts and kind of like final performance thoughts of this blaster, I think the nitro darts, if we can get them available on a regular basis and they're not stupid expensive, those might actually be the way to go. And this is all dependent on your FPS cap at your local events. So if it's a hard cap or a soft cap, you'll have to find that out from the organizer. Soft cap meaning that they might say 200 and you have to shoot 10 shots, and if any, you get like 2 fails or 3 fails or whatever, that's kind of a soft cap. So if anything goes over the 200, that's a soft, that's a fail. And they might allow you to have 3 of those out of the 10 or whatever the case may be. If it's a hard cap and it's 200 and you have 1 of the 10 go over 200, then you got to rework your blaster. In its current configuration, it's failed. So having a standard deviation of 9 right out of the box, before we modify it, that's a really good start. So average FPS is with the PCAR installed is 178.7 and high is 193. So your average is well below that 200 range, with your high not even breaking 200. So you don't even have to worry about the hard caps at 200 or even the soft caps. So like I said, nitro 60 feet, that wouldn't be too hateful. I mean, even going back and looking at the precision, like they were just below the target. So fixing that fixing the air seal, maybe stepping forward maybe 2-3 feet, that'll definitely get you ringing dead center every time. Heck, you might even get a bump in FPS if you have a better seal. So that might push you over the 200. Again, that's in an upgrade video that we'll have to go over. For right now, in its current configuration, with the darts not being readily available to us, the nitro darts that is, I'd have to go with the Worker Gen 3 plus the purple ones. In my testing, they turned out, as far as the FPS goes, your average is 185.3, highest FPS is 210.9, with a standard deviation of 11.8. Now, I know the high FPS of 210 is kind of scary, but having an average of 185 is really good. I feel like putting a different scar on here would be a little bit beneficial to help lowering that high FPS down, and then also putting the seal, getting a better seal, that'll give us a better standard deviation. So maybe we won't have kind of that huge mix. But as far as the precision goes, I feel like the Worker Gen 3 purple darts, I think those in my opinion, had a better grouping. Let me know in the comments below if you guys think differently and what darts you would use in this actual blaster. All right, so let's talk about my likes and dislikes for this blaster. First off, I am so excited that this blaster, that Dart Zone design, decided to split this blaster apart from the Nexus Pro X. Because that, and give it its own identity, kind of. We'll talk about that in a second. But one of the issues that people took part with the original Nexus and the original Stryker was they were ultimately the same blaster. And the Stryker came out a little bit after the Nexus, so it had a little bit of time to, kind of get in people's hands, and people made more mod kits for the Nexus Pro that weren't available for the Stryker. And there was definitely a split as to, some people enjoyed this one and some people enjoyed this one, but there were a few subtle differences. Now with this blaster and the Nexus Pro X, I feel like there are drastic difference. And my favorite one is this right here, what they call height over bore. Something that I feel, in my opinion, is damaging to the Nexus Pro X. Now I can understand the reason why they did it, and that was more or less to deal with, reducing a point of failure for air leak in the plunger and pusher section. I understand that, I get that. Still not my cup of tea, having such a height over bore when it comes to the Nexus Pro. This, on the other hand, is something I can get behind. I don't feel like I'm getting stuck behind cover and having to poke my end of my barrel out an extra 1.5 inches. I feel like, training myself to do that really kind of goes against my my thought process for every other blaster. And I've talked about this at length in a couple different videos, so I won't jump into it too much here. But just know that if you felt that issue with the Nexus Pro, or you look at that blaster and say, ugh, I really don't want to worry, I don't want to have to worry about that, this is your blaster. This has such a better feel, in my opinion, when it comes to that type of issue. The other thing that I enjoy is that they moved to short dart only. I think this is something that just needs to happen. I feel like having a pump action blaster that is long dart and short dart, is a possibility. And maybe that, is the 125 to 150 range, and this is the 200 range. Maybe that's what the max line will be or whatever. Or I guess this is Dart Zone Max. It says it right there. But I feel like they can get away with still having the short dart and long dart blasters, or maybe they'll just kind of branch off and do short dart only and long dart only. I mean, you've got the Thunderbolt here, that's long dart, which can be converted over to short dart. That's a possibility. But they also have the Maxim that's coming out. That's the same blaster, but short dart only. So maybe they're listening to us and saying, hey, we still want to play with long darts, but, when it comes to precision and competition, this is the way. But yeah, this short dart only is definitely where it's at when it comes to, high FPS competitive level blasters. And I feel like these entry points, like the Nexus Pro X, like the original Nexus was, and the Stryker, and now the Stryker 2.0, I feel like these are good entry points for those high competitive blasters. 200 seems to be a very common FPS cap. I know some people run 250 and 300, but for the most part, I hear 200 more often than not. But durability, I definitely feel has improved. That's the other thing. There isn't a lot of creaking. There is a little bit wobble side to side on this front grip, which was present with the original Stryker blaster. Like I said, originally in the beginning of my review, the main grip here had a lot of wiggle wobble in the original. Here, not so much, which is a great improvement. You can feel the plastic. It feels a little bit more substantial, which is good. The other thing is the side Picatinny and the rail mounts here. 3D printed designs are easy enough for this stuff, so that's fantastic. And again, people, I'm sure, will design full-length ones that will attach in here, and they'll give it that extra bit of tactical feel. The P-car included is a great include, and I think that's something they should do going forward. Even though the Nexus Pro came with a B-car, or a subpar B-car than they sell with the plastic bearings versus the dual kit. I'm glad they include some type of rifling. That way, if you're going to an event or whatever and you don't want to take your blaster with you, you can always pick one of these up, and it's good to go right out of the box with its own rifling. Let's say you're traveling or whatever for other reasons, and you've happened to come across someone that's having a Nerf war or a Nerf battle or whatever, and you want to partake, you can pick this up and feel like you're in a competitive state because it has rifling. It's short dart only, and it's a great, well put together package, all in one box for a great price. So let's talk about the magazine and the drum. I'm not a drum person. I don't care for drum blasters. I don't use them in any fashion. I feel personally like they're a little bit more of a hindrance. This one isn't nearly as much of a hindrance as I felt the Tomcat was, which for some people this is more of a Tomcat 2.0 than a Stryker 2.0. And I can see that because there is a lot of similarities. And one of the biggest modifications for the Tomcat was this thing right here. One of the biggest complaints about the Tomcat was, not everybody likes drums, and the drum was massive, and you kind of had to chicken wing it to prime it or whatever. But here they've shallowed out the drum, so it's not nearly as big because it doesn't have the 50 rounds available to you, which to me 50 rounds is pretty much all you need. And then they went and designed a mag adapter for it, and yeah, so I think this is a really cool include and a nod to the community that designed these originally. And there's several of them out there, but there's a couple that are well known. But this is a huge nod to the community, in my opinion. For those of you that don't want to run this and just want to run magazines. Now you can run both, and that's a possibility. I don't think in a competitive scene that you would ever run both. But in my opinion, you could run this 25 round drum and then remove the drum and then insert your mag adapter. And then you've got your magazine that you can actually insert after that. So a couple things to note about the magazine adapter is I was struggling to get this lined up or whatever in my initial and you could actually still see struggling with it with my initial unboxing video. And Lotus 3 on YouTube pointed out in my comments in my comment section. And I really do appreciate it, is you get a better insertion if you pull the mag adapter or pull the mag release either here with your middle finger or trigger it with this one and guide it in. It goes so much smoother when you do that. Like it just goes in like butter. And part of that is because these teeth really kind of want to like jumble around, and they're right on the edge of the plastic. So like it's easy to kind of fall off center until you get it into that track. So giving yourself a little bit of extra relief by pulling that mag release out, it gets it in there nice and smooth every time. The other thing that I wanted to mention in my unboxing video is if you are going to run the barrel or the drum magazine first with the 25 rounds and then switch to the magazine, it would be beneficial if this locked in, right? So that way you can carry this on your gear, and this would be the first magazine you pull when you switch. However, this doesn't lock in anyway, and so my initial gut reaction was like, okay, well, you put a magazine on and you have to carry this like on your shoulder or something like that. However, I did some field testing with this, and I'm excited to share this with you guys. There's a rubber band trick that you can do. Now you take your magazine adapter, and you can start it either way, but you wrap it around once, give it a twist, wrap a band around one more time, and then you go a third time, just like that. Now you want to make sure you keep track of the third wrap, right? So this is the third wrap right here. That's going to go on your magazine. So this one right here is going to go on your magazine. So you take your magazine, you've got your arrow, you put it in. It doesn't matter if this third wrap is going to the back or to the front. If you go like that, it's not coming off, right? Until you want it to, that is. So you start your game, your HVZ or whatever with this if you really want to, 25 rounds. That's a lot of ammo. 25 rounds there, and then you've got this one that's already loaded with your 12 rounds in your kit, or if you're using worker, we'll talk about compatibility here in a minute. That's on your gear. You empty your drum, drop that, you pull this out, and you stick this in. Make sure to pull your mag release so it goes in. You push this in, so you got your magazine inserted like this. You're on your last round, you fire off your last round, and then the last thing you need to do is reload. So you pull your magazine out nice and quick, and the rubber band goes back to your magazine well, right around your adapter. Nothing on the magazine. This doesn't go flying off. If you only wrap it twice, then it will go flying off. It's that third wrap you wrap around, and then either if it's, the third wrap is in the front or in the back, that doesn't matter. As long as it's a nice clean motion, it should lock onto your mag adapter. And then you can just dump this in your dump pouch, and then you're just reloading off the fly normally. And then at the end of the game, you can pull your magazine adapter out, and then you can reapply your third twist, and then again take your loaded magazine and just kind of walk that third twist off, and then you're back in the races, just like that. So it does take a little bit of finagling, but I think if you're going to run both of these, this is a good kind of tip or trick to get you, one step closer to reloading faster and making that switch from drum to magazine. My opinion, skip the drum, just go right to the magazine. You won't have to fool with any rubber bands or anything like that, but if you want to use this, by all means, go for it. This just helps you with the conversion. So again, thank you so much, Lotus, for pointing this out. This was huge, getting this in here nice and smooth. It just fits nice and easy when you pull that magazine release while you're loading it. So the other thing that I want to talk about was from a comment on the unboxing video from Zoompus. He was talking about magazine compatibility, and I don't normally do this with my review videos, but I feel like this is it probably should. So I will definitely, let's go ahead and talk about magazine compatibility real quick. So obviously the included magazine works great. This is actually the same kind of setup that worker uses as far as the notch is concerned, where that's at. So all your worker mags should work. I've got a Talon magazine, or I guess the Dragon Claw magazine from the worker Seagull. So those fit pretty well. They are a little tight across the front here, but they fit and feed just as well, even with the slightly more aggressive curve, as you can see. I'll line that up as best I can with the top. So it's a little bit more aggressive. They still fit. Worker Talon mags, those fit straights. These are 15-round magazines. I imagine 18 and the 10s work too, or whatever, the 5s. I've got my, this is from the Unicorn. It fits well, does not come out. That's fine. We also have the magazine from the Tryon. Again, same thing, fits in just fine. And this is all with the blaster being primed back, not primed. It still goes in nice and neat. All those work, primed, unprimed, perfectly fine. Now, where you run into issues is with these other ones. Now, these have a slightly different catch, so the catch is higher up than a Talon. So you've got the Talon mag here with the catch indent right here lower, and then with the Nexus Pro, the original Dart Zone magazines, the catch is higher up. So these will not lock in. They get caught, but they don't catch at the right spot. And that's simply because the catch mechanism is too high up, so it doesn't work. So original Nexus Pro magazines will not work. Here is the original Stryker magazine. Same thing. Will not catch. It will feed all the way up, but it will not catch it because of that. Here's the 15-round banana magazine from the Mark III. Again, same thing. And then last, slightly different reason. Now this is the short dart magazine from the X-Shot long shot, and you'll notice that with the Worker magazine next to it, you would think that it would work. Well, there's one key difference here in the fact that the Worker magazine, the catch plate here is straight through all the way, whereas with the X-Shot long shot, it's kind of indented, so there's these edges here. So this will not catch in the right spot. You probably can modify this just by knocking out these two corners a little bit, just so that the whole slot goes from side to side, and then it will fit. I haven't tested that because I want to leave this is my only one, and I want to leave it stock. But I imagine that would work because that's the only difference between these magazines, other than the fact that this is slightly thinner, but I don't think that would be an issue. I think the main issue is the fact that the slot doesn't go all the way across, and you're not engaging those two teeth that are on the outside edges of the magwell. So this will not work either. So you're going to run into some finagling with your X-Shot long shot magazines if that's what you're running. Your original Dart Zone mags will not work, but do yourself a favor, invest in some Worker magazines. Those are kind of the go-to. I really enjoy the 15 rounders from XYL and the Unicorn. I feel like the spring is a lot stronger, so I get a lot better feeding. Not that I have any issues with these Worker ones, but I feel like these are substantially stronger spring. So in the long run, this might be a better option. But nevertheless, there's your magazine adapter conversion and your magazine compatibility. So with magazines out of the way, let's talk about what I don't like, and not really what I don't like, or let's talk about what I would change. And that really kind of boils down to this right here, this mag adapter. In my opinion, I really wish this would have married up to the shell of the blaster a little bit better. The color itself is kind of off-putting as well. I wish it would match these, the accent pieces. I think that would have gone a little bit longer as far as kind of meet me halfway. But the one thing that I wish would have been different is I wish this would have been kind of married up. And I don't know if you can see this on camera, but there's a lot of dead space in here where the drum kind of sits. I wish this was kind of bowed out a little bit so it would marry up with these edges along the lines. Not a big issue. I know there's already people that are designing inserts and mag adapters that do just that and look the part. So that's going to be out there. I've got my own idea for what's going on here. So we will be coming up with our own version of this mag adapter with a few extra twists and turns. So stay tuned for that. But that's really my only gripe about it. The other thing that for compatibility issues that I'm kind of frustrated as, I don't understand why they decided to go with a different spring dimension than what they offer with the Nexus Pro X. That compatibility to me was a huge oversight. I feel like having just one set of springs that work for the Aeon Pro, the Nexus Pro X, and now the Stryker 2.0, I feel like that was pretty much a given. Like, I don't understand why that is. And to be honest with you, when we open this up, I'm curious what's keeping us from using those springs. If it's just the spring guide or whatever, that doesn't have anything to do with the plunger, the catch, or the plunger tube, or anything like that. It's just that guide. I'm wondering if we could just ditch that guide and use those other springs. So I guess I shouldn't say they're not compatible yet. Maybe we can make them compatible, but why would they just do that? Why, what's the reason, right? Like, now they're going to have to come out with, if they so choose, a spring set for the Dart Zone Stryker 2.0. So maybe it is a way for them to make extra money. So if whoever buys this blaster and the Nexus Pro X, if they want to upgrade it, they got to buy two separate spring sets. I don't know. You got me, guys. That's kind of a gripe of mine. But overall, this right here, I feel like was kind of an afterthought and should have seen a little bit more care. But like I said, I've got some big plans for this, so stay tuned. And I'm looking forward to sharing it with you guys. So other than that, guys, I'm really impressed. I like this blaster so much more than the Nexus Pro X, just because of the height over bore. I think it's a great looking blaster. And I didn't even mention the paint. There's paint on both sides, and it's that really cool texture paint. I forgot to mention that. It looks really sick. I don't know if I'd actually paint over this, or if I would, kind of mask off what they did here and paint the rest to match that. That would actually look pretty sick if you kind of went in and kind of carried over those colors and things like that to the green and got rid of the green and just kind of stuck with this kind of color scheme, the purples and the golds and the the gunmetal grays or whatever. I think that would look pretty sick. It would take a long time, but getting those fine brushes out would be kind of a nice challenge. Maybe. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you leave a comment down below with what you like about this blaster. I'm kind of curious what darts you're going to be running with this one, and what FPS cap you guys are running overall. So let me know what you like about the video, and we will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.